And welcome to Continental Prime here on News Center Television, coming to you live from Lagos. And the headlines. Government withdraws support for Miss South Africa for refusing to boycott pageant hosted in Israel. Nigeria's University Lecturers Union gives the federal government a 3-week strike ultimatum. 3 terrorists escaped from Kenya's maximum security prison. Details in a bit. For viewers across Africa and the rest of the world, this is Continental Prime. I'm Sulaiman Alede. Now, after a controversy involving the Miss Universe pageant being held in Israel, the South African government has withdrawn its support for the Miss South Africa pageant. Some countries have criticized the Miss South Africa organizers and the current title holder for agreeing to participate in the event. Rights organizations have called on Lalela Swane to refuse to attend the event due to the Israeli government's continued occupation of Palestine. Now, joining me now from Johannesburg in South Africa is journalist and editor Diane Hawker. Diane, good to see you again. And the government pulling its support for the pageant is quite a severe move. Now, how does this justify it?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, Sulaiman, and good evening to the viewers as well. The South African government has been sort of watching the controversy as it's been unfolding since it was announced that our current Miss South Africa would be participating in this pageant. And initially, it started with some rights organizations who usually take issue with the situation in Israel, such as BDS, which is an organization that regularly does have protests and raises issue around Israel. But it continued to escalate with other people saying that the South African government can't keep quiet, considering that South Africa was once an apartheid state. And a lot of these organizations have classified Israel as an apartheid state, particularly because of the occupation of Palestine and the fact that, there's that separation in terms of the areas that Palestinians are able to enter. And there's been a call really for the South African government to take a firm stance, because from an international relations perspective, they have previously taken a stance against Israel. You'll recall a few months ago, they raised questions about why Israel was given observer status at the African Union. And that's sort of how things escalated. And the South African government explains in their statement that there are concerns around the sort of human rights record of the Israeli government, and that they feel that Miss South Africa, the organizers and the individual who is Miss South Africa, which is Lalela Swane, should not be participating because of South Africa's past, but also because of the stance that the South African government has previously taken on issues relating to Israel.
And what about the Miss SA pageant organizers? Are they saying anything on this move by the SA government?
Well, the Miss SA pageant actually put out a statement just before the government statement saying that they view the pageant as not being political, that it's basically just a beauty pageant. And a lot of people have been critical of that decision based on South Africa's history. In South Africa during the time of apartheid, the Miss South Africa pageant was actually, it did have a political element to it, because Black people were not allowed to participate in the pageant, and only white South Africans were allowed to participate in the pageant. So they've questioned how the pageant can say that it is not in any way political, when in the past the country's politics have obviously played a part. And also some of the questions that the contestants are asked do sometimes actually enter that area of resolving issues that are taking place in the country. But in addition to that, people have basically said that their response is a bit tone deaf to the issues that people are raising about the Israeli government. I mean, you'll remember that just earlier this year, there were concerns raised about the airstrikes that the Israeli government was making into Gaza. A news organization building was also bombed at the time. Several civilians were also injured and killed in those strikes. So there has also been a recent escalation in that situation. And, you know, they basically were saying that there was an opportunity for the Miss SA pageant organizers to do the right thing, even though the Mlalela Mswane would have wanted to participate, but rather to take the correct path from a political perspective.
Well, Diane, before I let you go quickly, are there any rights group or, individual who is actually pushing this now that the South African government has spoken and the organizers have also given their own side of this? What are the people saying? What's the gist out there in South Africa?
Well, if you look at social media mainly, many people are actually saying that the Miss South Africa pageant is incorrect. But recently, the Jewish Board of Deputies, which is a local organization that is founded by Jewish South Africans, they also manage the Holocaust Museum here in South Africa. They have been critical of the South African government's decision, saying that it is the wrong move to take. But of course, you would understand that they are coming from a perspective of being a Jewish organization and Israel obviously being a majority Jewish country. So that's likely to be the perspective that they're coming from. But on the other hand, other political organizations, the African National Congress and BDS, which I mentioned earlier on, they have come out saying that they are happy with the South African government's position, saying that, South Africa, as a country that has survived apartheid, cannot support a country that is currently in the current state actually perpetuating an apartheid situation. So it's likely to continue to be a big talking point in South Africa. I don't think it's the end of this story just yet.
Diane Hawker, many thanks for unpacking this for us.
Thank you.
Let's go to West Africa, where Nigeria's Academic Staff Union of Universities has issued a 3-week ultimatum to the federal government to address all issues in an agreement reached in December 2020. The president of the union, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, stated these on Monday while addressing reporters in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. He warned that the union might be compelled to embark on another nationwide strike if the government fails to implement the memorandum of action signed by ASU before suspending the last industrial action. The ultimatum is a part of the resolutions reached at the National Executive Council meeting of ASU held in Nigeria's capital. Joining me for more on this is National President of the Academic Staff Union of Universities in Nigeria, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke. Good to see you, Professor Osodeke, and thanks for your time. Perhaps just to help us here quickly, what are some of the unique demands of your union?
Thank you very much. We have about 6 items on which we went on strike in 2020. And after a protracted strike, the government agreed to implement those 6 items within a time frame, the time limit that we all agreed on. And at the end of that time limit, which is around April, they were not implemented. And since then, we've been raising the issue with government up to August of this year. Hello, are you hearing me?
Go ahead, I can hear you, Professor Osodeke.
Until August this year, when they call us for a meeting again, and we set another timeline for the implementation of those items. Then at the end of, which was at the end of August, but at that end of August, none of these issues were treated. So we have been trying to sensitize the Nigerian public, the government, and those involved that to allow for peace in the system, this issue should be resolved as quickly as possible. In October, the Minister of Labour and Employment invited ASU and all the concerned ministry to a meeting where we all agree that these items will be implemented. But unfortunately, and the timeline we set for ourselves at that meeting was the end of October. But today we're in November 15, and those things have not been implemented.
So take us, can you tell us some of these key demands, if you will?
Thank you. These issues are one, the issue of revitalization of Nigerian public university. When you go around our university, they are in a dilapidated state. And we agree that between that January and April, the federal government will release 30 billion naira to Nigerian universities to upgrade some of the facilities in the system. That was one of them. Up to now, that money has not been released, even though they show us evidence as at that time that those things, that money was the special account in Central Bank. Today, they have not been released. And academic allowance for our members for doing extra work. The start-to-student ratio recommended by NUC is between 1 lecturer to 9 students, 1 lecturer to 9 students in the medical field, and 1 lecturer to the maximum of 15 students in the humanities. But today, so university, this ratio is 1 to 50. Based on that, we agree that while the federal government is trying to build up this gap, those lecturers doing extra work will be paid some money, which is known as the end academic allowance. And they have agreed they will release 21.127 billion as at the end of August to those who deserve it. Not everybody. It's end allowance, it's not shared. And today we are in November, that money has not been released. We have issue of negotiation of our 2009 agreement. The last time we negotiated salary with government was 2009. As of today, we have produced a draft agreement between we and the government team, but up till now, we have not heard from the government on whether they should sign or if there are issues raised in those agreements that they want to also look at. They have not done anything. We also have issue of payment procedure. As at now, they are using what they call IPs as payment for all establishments, including university. And we have told them from the beginning that IPs cannot handle payment of salary in Nigerian university because of the peculiarity of university. They will allow people come from all over the world and all over the sector to teach in the system. Today, as I speak to you, many of our colleagues have not been paid from between to 20 months. Some are being paid some months, and after some time they stop, which is creating crisis within the system. And we agree that should produce work for them, which we have done, and they are not using it. They have not accepted it. They agree they will bring it at the end of August so that we look at their recommendation and then we can take it forward from there till now nothing has happened. These are some of the issues for which...
Quickly, in your view, what do you think the government, or why do you think the government has not been able to meet any of these demands you have just highlighted?
Yes. You see, there are little things we believe the government can, if there is sincerity, can implement, as they have agreed. And we believe that for peace in the system, they should go ahead, and for the comfort of our members, so that they can do their work adequately, they should go and implement those things that have agreed on. So that we also upgrade our facilities, the laboratories, the libraries, and what have you, and the lecture theatre. As I tell you, so when you go to our university, you have some lecture theatre that can take only 200, is used for 500 students. All the other study from outside. There's the need to upgrade the system, and it's not a difficult thing. And we believe federal government should go and do that as soon as possible for peace in the system.
Before we let you go, do you still think that strike is fashionable to get in some of these key demands?
You see, if the system decides to do what it should do, there will not be strike. You tell somebody the way you are now, somebody tell you tomorrow I will do X, Y, Z for you, and 2 years later it's not done, and those things are essential for your service, there will be a problem. We as a union, we don't like strike. We paid dearly for strike. For 9 months I was not paid last year, it's 2020. So my family pays for it. But we believe that the system must change. We will not allow it to collapse like they have succeeded in collapsing our public primary and secondary school. As I speak to you, our public primary and secondary schools are all dead. Do we also want our public university to die so that the average person in Nigeria, every worker who earns about 30,000 per month is supposed to go and pay 1 million in a private university? Is that what we want for a country? We want our children to stay at home without education? Is that what we want as a country? Do you want our children to go to faculty of engineering when they will graduate? I will not know what structural engineering is, and our building are collapsing as you are seeing today. Is that what we want as a country? These are the questions we should ask.
So the big worry here is that is there any form of communication at the moment between your union and the federal government of Nigeria?
We met in mid-October, and they promised this thing will be resolved by the end of October. Between the end of October and today, 15 days, they are not even reaching out to say, look, we have this problem, we couldn't do this. That's what we expect to do if there's sincerity in purpose, if there's sincerity of purpose. That's a problem. So there's no sincerity. If there is, if you couldn't have done it, you should let us know why we didn't do it.
So, and quickly here, some concerns from Nigerians is that you're speaking with about two key ministries here, that of education and labor. So, who exactly should be getting back to ASU?
What we are saying, the Ministry of Labor is just a conciliator, bring people together and agree. So we will not really, in true sense, blame the Ministry of Labor, but their own idea is to bring us together so that, and at that meeting, if you watch the minister at that meeting, he will say categorically that this thing will be done by the end of October. But other ministries, especially Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Education, they have all failed us.
Professor Emmanuel Osodoke, many thanks for your time, and we hope to stay on this as we progress. Now, staying in the region, the European Union has agreed to draft a list of possible sanctions on Russian mercenaries who could be deployed to West Africa's Sahel region. French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian announced this while arguing in favor of sanctions against Mali. He was speaking to journalists on the sidelines of an EU foreign ministers meeting. France had pushed for European sanctions against the junta in Mali following those announced by the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS.
Ce matin, la réunion des ministres des Affaires étrangères a abordé en particulier la question du Mali et en particulier la mise en œuvre de sanctions à l'égard des autorités du Mali qui ne mettraient pas en œuvre le processus de transition démocratique, en répondant en cela à la demande de la communauté économique des États d'Afrique occidentale, la CEDEAO, qui avait sollicité à cet égard démocratique. Et donc nous avons été solidaires et déterminés dans cette direction. C'est un point important que la France avait sollicité et qui a été largement partagé. Il y a une menace d'intervention au Mali et l'Union européenne a décidé de mettre en œuvre un cadre juridique pour engager des sanctions contre la société Wagner, à la fois les membres de la société et les sociétés qui travaillent directement avec cette société Wagner. Donc,
in Burkina Faso, the death toll from Sunday's attack in the northern region has risen to 32 from the 20 reported earlier. In a statement on Monday, the government said the fatalities include 28 military police officers and 4 civilians who were killed in an attack on a gendarmerie post. The attack is the deadliest suffered by Burkina Faso troops since an insurgency by militants took off in 2017. President Roch Kabore has decreed 3 days of national mourning for victims of the attack, which took place near a gold mine in Innata and came 2 days after another raid in the area killed 7 police officers. In the meantime, in Central Africa, the Red Cross and a security watchdog say the death toll from attacks last week in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo has risen to 38. The attacks were attributed to the ADF rebel group. The respected Kivu security tracker said the toll, which initially stood at 5, has been revised upward after the discovery of new bodies in 2 neighboring villages. The local Red Cross says it also counted 38 dead. The Democratic Republic of Congo's highest court says it was not competent to try former Prime Minister Matata Ponyo Mapon over the alleged misappropriation of $200 million in government funds meant for an agriculture project. A lawyer for Matata, who denies any wrongdoing, said he considered the case closed, although prosecutors could pursue it before a different court. The prosecution alleged more than $200 million went missing from the Bukanga Lonzo project. The ruling also applies to the former government official Patrice Kitebi and Christo Grobler, the head of the South African operator African Commodities. Now let's go to East Africa, where a Kenyan court has jailed 4 police officers for the manslaughter of a British aristocrat, Alexander Monsoon, who died in custody after being arrested in Mombasa in 2012. The 4 officers were given jail terms of between 9 and 15 years, but each case was suspended between 5 and 6 years. Judge Eric Ogola ruled that Monsoon was brutally tortured and had cannabis planted on him after he died. The judge said the officers had covered up what happened to the 28-year-old, who was the son of Lord Nicholas Monsoon and heir to the family estate in Lincolnshire. Police arrested him for allegedly smoking cannabis in the Diani Beach resort in May of 2012. He had moved to Kenya in 2008 to live with his mother. His father, who arrived in Kenya over the weekend, his mother and several family members were in court for the ruling. Now, 3 terrorists have escaped from Kenya's highest security prison, including a dangerous inmate serving 41 years over an attack that killed 148 people. The Directorate of Criminal Investigation said a reward of 60 million Kenyan shillings would be offered to anyone with information that might lead to the capture of the trio. No explanation was offered about how Muhammad Ali Abikar, Joseph Juma Odembo, and Musharraf Abdullah Akulunga escaped from Committee Maximum Prison on the outskirts of Nairobi. The Commissioner General of Prisons, Wycliffe Ogalo, has visited the scene to establish the circumstances that led to the unfortunate incident. Now, staying in east of Africa, a doctors' union in Sudan says 2 more protesters died in hospital from wounds after being shot during mass protest against last month's military coup. The Sudan Doctors Committee says the death raised the death toll from Saturday's protest to 7, of which a gunshot did not kill only 1. The committee said the new deaths include a 13-year-old shot in the head in front of her family's home in Khartoum, and Omar Adam shot in his neck during protest, also in Khartoum. More than 200 others were wounded when security forces used live ammunition and tear gas to disperse protesters in the capital city of Khartoum and its twin city of Omdurman. In North Africa, specifically Libya, where the military prosecutor there, Mohamed Garouda, has asked the country's electoral body to stop processing the paperwork for the presidential candidacy of Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, the son of the country's late ruler, Muammar Gaddafi. Now, the prosecutor also asked for the suspension of the paperwork for warlord Khalifa Haftar, who is also seeking the presidency. Mr. Garouda warned that the commission would be held responsible for consequences if the paperwork processing was not halted. The International Criminal Court still wants the younger Gaddafi on charges of war crimes committed in 2011, while Mr. Haftar, who leads forces in eastern Libya, is wanted by a U.S. court for allegedly torturing his countrymen during the war. You're watching Continental Prime here on News Central Television. Coming up, Egypt to start clinical trials of a locally made coronavirus vaccine. We'll bring you more on this when we return. Stay with us. Well, if you just joined us, you're welcome. You're watching Continental Prime here on News Central Television. Now, some former militant agitators from Nigeria's Niger Delta region who were granted amnesty by the previous government are calling on President Muhammadu Buhari to integrate them into the third phase of government's presidential amnesty program. The agitators under the aegis of the Association of Third Phase Ex-Armed Agitators of Thought say the neglect of former militants in the amnesty program is a threat to the peace and stability of Nigeria's Niger Delta region. The region, which is rich in oil and gas, is Nigeria's petroleum hub, where it derives over 70% of its revenue. Our correspondent Idong Joseph reports.
They converged on the entrance of Nigeria's parliament, seeking to be integrated into the presidential amnesty program of the nation. The protesters, all former agitators from Nigeria's South-South region. Many of them had laid down their arms in 2011 as part of government's intervention to restore peace to the region. They expressed worry over the inability of Nigeria's government to fulfill promises made.
We have been greatly sidelined since 2013 to date. We surrender these arms and ammunition so that development can strive in the Niger Delta. As I'm talking to you now, multinational oil companies are celebrating increment in oil production. While we, the ex-agitators who surrendered for peace, for development, are still suffering. We have nothing to show that we've embraced peace in an oil-rich region.
The former militants say they have been living as refugees in Nigeria's federal capital, Abuja, in the last 2 years. They say they live in fear of being killed by members of their formal gangs who feel betrayed by government, especially as they were convinced to drop their arms and embrace peace.
Me, I not fit go to my house. My woman not to my house. My woman is another village. Me and my soldiers, many, we are in this Abuja for 3 years. I'm begging the government, make government look to this matter.
We need our slots. That is the basic thing we are here for.
Yes.
We need our slots.
Yes.
See, our youths are having problem over there. People are frustrating. We are in pain. We are not sleeping. Please, we are begging the country. Let them look into this matter and give us our slots. Let them embrace peace.
With over 150 camp leaders and an unspecified numbers of former fighters seeking to join the third phase of Nigeria's government amnesty program, the group said they will continue their agitation until they can safely return to their communities. From Abuja, Idong Joseph, News Central Television.
Now to our daily update on the coronavirus pandemic across the continent. Now let's continue from South Africa, where the National Institute for Communicable Diseases has reported 136 new COVID-19 infections, which brings the total number of laboratory-confirmed cases to 2.9 million. The Institute on Monday says that the increase represents a 0.9% positivity rate. According to the National Department of Health, 5 persons died from COVID-19 complications, bringing total fatalities to 89,489 to date. The department says 18.9 million tests have been conducted in both the public and private sectors. Now, 12 Kenyans have tested positive for the coronavirus in the past 24 hours from a sample size of 1,730 tests conducted during the period. In a statement on Monday, the Health Ministry said the new cases put the positivity rate from the virus at 0.7% from 0.8 previously reported. The statement notes that the youngest patient is 10-year-old, while the oldest is 76. It adds that the total confirmed cases now stand at 254,309, while cumulative tests conducted so far are 2.77 million. 3 patients died from COVID-19 complications today, taking the cumulative death to 5,319. Nigeria Center for Disease Control says 8 people died from COVID-19 complications on Sunday. The NCDC update released on Monday morning also showed 20 new COVID-19 infections were reported from 4 states during the period, taking the total number of confirmed cases to 213,147, while 205,732 persons have been discharged. The figures also put the total fatalities from the virus at 2,968. The NCDC adds that a multi-sectoral National Emergency Operations Center activated at Level 2 coordinates the national response activities. In Egypt, a ban on public sector employees unvaccinated for COVID-19 takes effect today. According to government rules, public university students are also barred from campuses if not vaccinated, and those public employees who are unvaccinated need to submit a PCR test weekly. More than 14 million people in Egypt have had 2 vaccine doses, and nearly 27 million have had 1. The government has set a target of vaccinating 40% of Egypt's population of just over 100 million by the end of this year. Egypt has received millions of vaccines through the global COVAX facility and bilateral donations, and is assembling China's Sinovac vaccine locally. Still ahead, Liverpool police believe they know the identity of the passenger who set off Sunday's bomb at the Women's Hospital. We'll have more on that developing story and others after the break. Join us again. Now, UK police have declared that Sunday's explosion outside a hospital in Liverpool is a terror incident. This comes as detectives arrested a 4th man over the blast, which killed a passenger inside a taxi. At a press briefing on Monday, the Merseyside Police Assistant Chief Constable Ross Jackson says police believe they know the identity of the taxi passenger who set up the explosive device. The blast and fireball sent thick smoke into the air just seconds before Britain fell silent in tribute to its war dead and military veterans at 1100 GMT. There was immediate praise for the taxi driver who reportedly locked the passenger inside the cab after growing suspicious about his intentions.
The circumstances, as we understand them to be, are that yesterday, shortly before 11 a.m, a local taxi driver picked up a fare in the Rutland Avenue area of Liverpool. The fare, a man, had asked to be taken to Liverpool Women's Hospital, which was about 10 minutes away. As the taxi approached the drop-off point at the hospital, an explosion occurred from within the car. This quickly engulfed it in flames. Following discussions with Army Ordnance Disposal, we are able to confirm that this is being treated as the ignition of an explosive device. Our inquiries also indicate that the device was brought into the cab by the passenger. We believe we know the identity of the passenger, but we cannot confirm this at this time. Our inquiries have led us to 2 addresses. The first was Sutcliffe Street in the Kensington area of Liverpool, and at this location, 3 men, aged 21, 26 and 29, were arrested yesterday under Section 41 of the Terrorism Act. A short while ago, again in the Kensington area, a further man, aged 20, was arrested under Section 41 of the Terrorism Act. They will be interviewed later today by counter-terrorism detectives. A second address has also been searched at Rutland Avenue in Sefton Park. At this location, significant items have been found. Further searches will be necessary today and potentially into the coming days. A cordon is in place.
I completely understand that communities in Merseyside may be concerned. I can reassure you that my officers are out and about on the ground, providing high visibility reassurance. There is no specific threat to the area, but I have asked for patrols to be increased right across Merseyside. Incidents such as this are very rare, but I would ask people to remain calm, but also be vigilant and alert.
Well, Nigeria's inflation rate dropped marginally by 0.6% for October. Data released by the National Bureau of Statistics shows that Nigeria's inflation rate for October dropped to 15.9% from the 16.63% recorded in September. The Statistician General of the Federation, Dr. Simon Hari, disclosed this while announcing the monthly consumer price index in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Dr. Hari, who said the figure is 1.76% higher when compared to 2020, also added that Nigeria's economy had witnessed about a 7-month decline in inflation.
There was a decline from 16.63% recorded in the month of September 2021 to 15.99% in the month of October 2021. With this, it means that the declining trend for about 7 months portends a positive change or signal given the favorable economic condition that the rate of inflation in Nigeria certainly would continue to maintain the trend. And so we're hoping that necessary measures will be put in place by government policy-making body to maintain this.
Certainly, we have more business news stories for you. Let's go to Lekan Onabanjo.
Welcome to Business News on NC Continental Prime. I am Lekan Onabanjo. At least 15 Kenya-based companies have been blacklisted by the World Bank and the African Development Bank in less than 2 years over fraud and quality concerns in projects funded by the multilateral lenders. Nairobi-based consultancy firm Africa Development Professional Group is the latest firm with Kenyan links to join the financiers' blacklist after the World Bank banned it from alleged fraud. Some of the other recently banned companies by AFDB based in Kenya are Aerospace Aviation, Beta Trading Company, Global Inter-Japan Kenya Limited, Evertop Agencies, Maduje Global Services, Maktaba Contractors Limited, and others. Still in Kenya, its economy has recorded an accelerated growth in the aggregate output of 10.1% in Q2 2021 compared to a contraction of 4.7% in the same quarter of 2020. According to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, the economic growth declined to 0.7% in Q1 2021 compared to 4.4% in Q1 2020 due to the effects of the pandemic on the economy. However, during the second quarter of 2021, the country's accelerated growth rate was driven by rebounds in most economic activities from significant contractions in Q2 2020. Some of the sectors that supported overall growth in Kenya's economy in the second quarter included manufacturing 9.6%, education 67.6%, transportation and storage 16.9%, information and communication 25.2%, and other services activities 20.2%. And elsewhere, Dutch multinational brewing company Heineken NV has offered to buy South African wine and spirits maker Distill Group Holdings and Namibia Brewing Limited, which will be combined with Heineken South Africa into a new Heineken majority-owned business with a total valuation of approximately €4 billion. Distill is Africa's leading producer and marketer of ciders, flavored alcoholic beverages, wines and spirits, and Namibia Brewing Limited is the beer market leader in Namibia. The combination will have a significantly strengthened and complementary route to market in South Africa and Namibia, with further growth opportunities across Southern Africa. At least 9 multinational oil companies, including Chevron and ExxonMobil, will pay the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited a total of 156.148 billion naira for the August 2021 domestic crude oil exports, according to the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. A document obtained from NNPC in the capital Abuja showed that the firms, which were joint venture partners of the National Oil Company, exported hundreds of thousands of barrels of crude oil in August. In the August 2021 domestic crude oil payable in November 2021 report, the NNPC explained that the remittance was in line with its payment policy of 90 days period. Analysts said The 156.148 billion naira expected this month from the JV partners of NNPC would go a long way in boosting the revenue from oil, considering the fact that the country's oil production dropped in October. And finally, gold price has steadied as investors are considering what's next for inflation and monetary policy while scrutinizing better than expected economic data from China. Bullion finished last week at its highest since June as accelerated price pressures rocked a bond market and fueled demand for the traditional haven. Treasuries are steadier on Monday as investors await public appearances by U.S. Federal. Gold fell 0.3% to $1,857.53 an ounce by 1:14 p.m. Shanghai time, platinum, palladium and silver all fell more than 1%. Bullion has benefited as soaring inflation combines with a perception that the U.S. Fed has other priorities such as boosting employment. Bond market expectations for inflation over the coming decade are at their highest since 2006. And that's business news for you on this segment. NC Continental Prime continues in a bit. Do stay with us. I am Lekon Onobanjo.
Many thanks, Lekon. Sheon Bankole will now take us through some of the trending stories on social media.
Thank you for joining us this brand new Monday on NC Trends. Now stay tuned to find out the top stories trending today on social media and the candid views of social media users. I am Sheon Bankole. The Nigerian Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, says he does not know what has become of the video camera he found at the Lekki toll gate in the wake of the End SARS protest in October 2020. Fashola, who was in the delegation of ministers, legislators and state governors, stooped to carefully pick up the camcorder with a piece of cloth from the half-burnt Lekki toll gate and handed the camera to an official, a discovery which sparked plenty of reactions on social media. Now, that footage of Fashola snooping around the scene became meme materials for weeks. Now, in a recent interview, when asked what has become of the camera, Fashola said, and I quote, "You should not be asking me. You have the tapes showing that I handed it over to the government of Lagos, so you have all the recordings. Don't ask me what happened to the camera. I don't know." End of quote. Well, this response has woken up Nigerian sweeps online. Here are a few of their comments. Nelly Agu says the camera grew wings just as it flew down to where you were as James Bond picked it. Well done, actor. #Fashola. Here's another comment from Olisa Osega. She says this guy was once tipped for president by a lot of people back then. That was how highly rated he was. Whew. Whatever happened to Fashola though? Okay, another comment from @SoftBoyB. The people that were here when he picked up this camcorder would have had the best live show of their lives. All right, we move now to Ghana, where journalist Albert, a young online reporter with username @BongoIdeas, has been trending for some hours now. In a funny twist of events, the highly opinionated blogger found himself in a big mess after he appeared on GH1 TV's audition for the next TV star. Well, Ghanaian media personalities Nana Abba, Sewa Amiye, and Bridget Otto were the judges during the audition, and it turned out that the journalist Albert had insulted them on social media in the past. So Nana Abba asked him to be bold enough and say to their faces all that he had been posting on Twitter, but he was reluctant, and he also refused to apologize, and he was eventually asked to walk out. There have been loads of reactions to the now trending audition video. Ghanaian celebrities have weighed in on the issue, and the blogger himself has come out to narrate all of what transpired, earning him even more bashing online. Here are some of the posts. NBA says, "I'm sorry you went through all that, but then again, what were you expecting? How you're feeling now is how the numerous people you've bullied on this app have felt at some point after reading your tweets." All right. This one says, "Nobody supports cyberbullying, but tell me if none of these three ladies who bullied this guy with their inland power mainly in Accra have never cyberbullied anyone on social media before. None of these ladies have any moral rights to act like they are far from cyberbullying." All righty. Queenie says, "But how can your normal self rush to a program organized by people you have been insulting on social media all this while? Did you not have some conscience? Learn to be kind with your words on social media." A lesson for everybody right there. You did not feel half of what you made them feel when you insulted them. Now, finally, in Ethiopia, East Africa, the hashtag #DisarmTerrorists is trending alongside the hashtag #NoMore. This comes after a Twitter campaign asking the world to listen to the words of the hundreds of women who have been violently raped by TPLF forces was launched on Twitter earlier on Monday. The Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, has since been designated by Ethiopian government as a terrorist group, and now citizens are calling on the international community to bring an end to the menace that is TPLF. See some comments now. Mesky one. I have children and I was scared that the TPLF fighters might kill my daughter. I said, don't kill my children. Do whatever you want to me. The youngest was asleep, but the older was awake and saw what happened. At Amnesty, children are traumatized. Hashtag #DisarmTerrorists. Here's another comment from Joa Bajo. 3 of them raped me while my children were crying. At Amnesty, this is the testimony of TPLF gang rape victim among hundreds in Amhara. When Twitter is silencing pro-Ethiopians, it is also silencing victims. Victims are really suffering. Hashtag #NoMore. Hashtag #SilenceDisarmTerrorists. Now, Shaga Life says, just in 9 days, TPLF terrorists committed despicable acts that amount to war crimes and potential crimes against humanity. One can only imagine how much atrocities they commit in areas that they controlled for a longer period. Condemns sexual violence by TPLF. Hashtag #DisarmTPLF. Now, thank you so much for joining us on today. That's all I have got for you. Don't forget to follow us across social media at News Central TV. I am Shion Bankari.
Well, Udoka Unjoko is here with the latest sports news from the continent and beyond. Hello, Udoka.
Hi, Sulaiman. How are you doing today?
Good.
All right, let's go straight to the World Cup qualifiers now. South Africa are set to make a formal complaint about questionable decisions made by the match officials in Sunday's 1-0 defeat by Ghana. Now, this comes as the head coach, head of South Africa's Football Association, Tebogo Motlanthe, accused the match officials of deciding the game, adding that SAFA will ask CAF to investigate how the game was handled and challenge some decisions. Now, Bafana needed a draw to reach the third and final round of the African qualifying for the 2022 World Cup, but Ghana won via a penalty. And the narrow win by the Black Stars of Ghana enabled them to reach the African World Cup playoffs by the narrowest of margins, ousting South Africa at the top of the group on goals scored.
The association has decided to lodge a formal complaint so that the conduct of the match officials are closely investigated by both FIFA and CAF. But we will be having a press conference which we will be telling the nation what will happen going forward.
All right, moving on from there, let's go straight to Kenya. Now, the head of Kenya's disbanded National Football Federation, Nick Mwendwa, has been freed on bail after he appeared in court on Monday over allegations of corruption. Now, Mr. Mwendwa is being accused of transferring about 8.5 million Kenyan shillings of Federation money into his own account without any documentation to justify the move. Now, prosecutors had asked the court to detain Mwendwa for 14 days to allow them to complete their investigations, but Magistrate Wandia Nyamu ordered him freed on bail until another hearing on Wednesday. And the 41-year-old Mwendwa, who has denied any wrongdoing and says he's still in charge of the FKF, spent the weekend in police custody following his arrest on Friday. Now, FIFA has warned that Kenya risks being banned if the government did not consider reinstating Mwendwa and his team. Going straight to the 2024 Olympics now. French Prime Minister Jean Castex has warned that the Paris 2024 Olympics must be held in optimal security conditions. Now, Mr. Castex gave the warning on Monday at the end of an interministerial committee dedicated to the Games. After the meeting, the Prime Minister asked the Interior Minister, Gerard Damanin, to make proposals concerning the security of the sites of the Games, particularly the opening ceremony, which could take place on the Seine in the French capital, Paris.
Tout ça doit se faire dans des conditions de sécurité optimales. Et j'ai donc demandé à l'ensemble des acteurs, au premier rang évidemment desquels le ministre de l'Intérieur, de nous faire des propositions sur ce sujet avec un calendrier précis, d'ici la fin de l'année pour la cérémonie d'ouverture et au plus tard en juin 2022 pour l'ensemble des sites et des épreuves. D'ores et déjà, les choses avancent clairement, dans le bon sens et, me semble-t-il, avec efficacité. Bon, la réalité, si je devais là encore la résumer, mesdames et messieurs, c'est que nous n'avons pas droit à l'erreur. On ne peut pas se louper. Nous accueillons normalement les Jeux olympiques et paralympiques en France tous les 100 ans. Vaut mieux, mes chers amis, être au rendez-vous du monde. Et c'est ce qu'en sort. L'objectif suivant, je vous le dis très clairement, nous jouons à domicile, il nous faut gagner des médailles. Alors, je me garderai bien. Nous avons, ces dernières semaines, et encore ce matin au comité interministériel, dégagé des moyens supplémentaires et fléchés pour que cette préparation de nos athlètes olympiques et paralympiques, après les résultats que vous connaissez des Jeux de Tokyo, soit la plus optimale possible. C'est un point central. Le choix de Paris 2024, c'est d'utiliser, en les modernisant bien sûr, en les transformant, le maximum d'infrastructures existantes. Mais il en faut quelques nouvelles, et celle-là, sous maîtrise d'ouvrage de la métropole du Grand Paris, vous le savez, est la principale. Donc, merci à tous. Un héritage, c'est-à-dire à partir de la fin 2026, début 2027, 2500 agents du ministère de l'Intérieur s'installeront dans les halles Maxwell et le bâtiment Copernic, au cœur du village olympique, au cœur de Saint-Denis. C'est là encore un acte fort.
All right, and that's a wrap on Sports Update on NC Continental Prime. I am Udoka Njoku.
Many thanks, Udoka. Let's see what our weather desk has for the weather update. As all others are, but before we go, let's take another look at some of the top stories. South Africa's government has withdrawn its support for Miss South Africa after the pageant refused to boycott the Miss Universe event being hosted in Israel. Nigeria's Union of University Lecturers has given the federal government a 3-week strike ultimatum. And finally, we told you that 3 terrorists have escaped from Kenya's maximum security prison. Do follow us on social media. We have News Central TV. You can also download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store. You can also watch News Central live in Star Times Channel 274, Vision 247, AVO TV, Free TV, as well as on YouTube. I'm Sulaiman. Many thanks for watching.